I drank absinthe for the first time in 1987, the winter of '87 in Paris. I lived there. I was a young writer. My mother had just died. I went to Switzerland, got a bottle of bootlegged absinthe, brought it back under the hood of a rented car, opened it in Paris on a wintry evening, drank about 5 glasses of it, and woke up the next day lying on my couch.
Do you mean it made you pass out?
I think I just fell asleep. I was looking at the snow falling and the stars and trying to get over a dark moment in my life, and I guess I was playing a little bit with the dreams and memories of Paris in the 1890s, and I had a little special, strange moment.
Absinthe was first produced in Switzerland at the end of the 18th century. It grew in popularity in France slowly at first. It was more of a local product to the Pontarlier Cuvée region. It really became popular in the mid 19th century when it was given to troops, French troops who were fighting in overseas wars. It was supposed to be a medicinal value and protect them from various diseases.
They would put it in their canteen water to kill germs in the canteens. And these soldiers came back to France with a real taste for absinthe.
It was then adopted by the bourgeoisie, and at the end of the 19th century it was probably the most popular drink in Paris.
Absinthe almost predicted what would happen culturally in France. It inspired the Impressionist painters. They drank it, they painted pictures of absinthe drinkers. The poets drank it. It may have fueled their creative fires. They also wrote poems about how absinthe destroyed them or their fellow poets. Verlaine and Rimbaud are good examples of that. They drank it in tremendous amounts, and eventually Verlaine died a terrible death, not necessarily because of absinthe. He also liked wine and beer, but a whole world seemed to be fueled by absinthe, which has a kind of a licorice taste or an anise taste. That's the primary herb in this drink. But it also has wormwood.
Wormwood is essential, yes. If it hasn't got wormwood in it, it isn't really absinthe.
You also find it in history going back 2,000 years ago to the Greeks and Romans. It was used to prevent pain during menstrual periods for women, also to get rid of worms from the lower intestinal tract. And it as such was entered into medieval apothecaries. You find it in Gerard's famous herbal book of the 15th century, and it's come up through history as a folkloric remedy for just about anything with your lower tract. Thujone, which is the essential ingredient in wormwood, has been known to cause epileptic convulsions. And when combined with alcohol is even more powerful than on its own. It seems to release the ingredients in wormwood in a different way than just consuming wormwood or alcohol on its own. Every alcohol has its own feeling, its own mood, whether it's red wine, white wine, vodka, gin martini. And I think absinthe is a little bit like a whiskey or a vodka, but with an extra lift-off.
Glasses you've got here are called Pontarlier glasses because they're very popular in the village of Pontarlier, which is where absinthe was first made in France. And they've got a reservoir at the bottom, which means that when the dose was poured in, it's very easy to get it right because you just filled up that little bit at the bottom.
With about an inch of absinthe in the bottom and then 2 or 3 inches of ice water poured over a sugar cube balanced on a silver spoon. And they would have mixed that up, and you would have sat on a cafe and drunk 5 or 6 in an evening.
In the Czech Republic, the ritual takes on a slightly different sort of procedure, whereas once you place the sugar on the spoon, you would then douse a little amount of the absinthe on the sugar, You would set a light to it and then douse it with cold water. And then the caramelised sugar would go through the spoon.
But it was really about the 1880s that absinthe took off. And you see a tremendous growth from 1874, when about 75,000 liters a year were being consumed by the French, to a growth to literally millions and millions of liters of absinthe being consumed by 1910. You had the wine producers, who controlled about 72% of all alcoholic beverages consumed in France at the time, feeling threatened.
An unholy alliance between the temperance movement and the wine producers set about banning absinthe, and they were successful. It was banned in most European countries in the first part of the 20th century.
There was a terrible murder in 1905. A man called Jean Lanfray woke up in the morning, drank his usual eye-opener of several glasses of cognac, then proceeded to have a couple of glasses of absinthe, and went on during his lunch break as a worker to have a bottle of wine, and then came home, stopped off again in the pub, had a couple of glasses of another kind of non-absinthe alcohol, and then murdered his wife and his 3 kids with a rifle. This set off Switzerland. This was the last straw for them, and they banned absinthe in that year. They took a vote in 1906, and it was banned by 1910.
It was never banned in the UK because it was never really seen as a problem in the UK. It wasn't a very popular drink. It was probably only drank by poets and artists who had picked up a taste for it in Paris.
In 1915, France banned absinthe as a wartime measure. And like most measures of this sort, they're rarely repealed. That was the last time absinthe was legal in France. It had also been banned in 1910 in America, and earlier in Belgium and in Switzerland. The only places that it remained legal, and still remain legal, are Spain and England, and of course the Czech Republic. 2
or 3 years ago, there was quite a market emerging for absinthe in the UK, and like any market, where there's a desire, there's someone willing to satisfy that desire. So consequently, a number of absinthes were imported from the Czech Republic.
You find bootleggers in Switzerland making absinthe up in the little villages, the same villages where Dr. Ordinaire would ride his horse around and sell his folkloric remedies. I've been to those villages, and I bought bootlegged absinthe there, and it was great. They make it's like buying moonshine from West Virginia hillbillies. Very difficult to find, very difficult to buy it. No one wants to say they're making it, but it's still being made, it's still being sold. You have the Czechs making it today. You still have the Spanish absinthe made in Andorra, in Portugal, even in Japan. It's illegal to import it into this country, but as I understand it, it's actually not illegal to possess absinthe here. It's a little like the Cuban cigar situation. You can own Cuban cigars here, you just can't import them. And there are legal ways for Cuban cigars to enter this country. But not many people are really looking at absinthe these days. And if you come through customs with a bottle, you might be rebuked and have it removed, but you're probably not going to be thrown in jail. They're really, these days, looking for terrorists, not bottles of absinthe for people who want to remember Van Gogh, Picasso, and Degas.